Thank you for joining me again in Bible study. Today we're looking at the text for Palm Sunday in part 1 of our two-part session on the text from Luke chapter 19, verses 29 to 44. If you haven't read the text, I encourage you to do so. Maybe pause this video, and if you don't have a Bible handy, then there is a link to an online version of the reading that's below in the video description. So you can click that link, go off, read the text, and then come back to this video. If you don't have time to read it, that's okay. I'll give you a short summary of the text. Jesus is making his final approach to Jerusalem. He sends two of his disciples off to find a donkey that he wants to ride into Jerusalem on. He rides into Jerusalem with shouts of peace from those who follow him, and then, as he gets closer, he laments over the fact that Jerusalem still hasn't found the peace that it should have throughout the centuries. The characters in today's story are Jesus, the two disciples, the owner of the colt, some Pharisees, and the residents of Jerusalem. Of course, the major character is Jesus, and the rest of them play a more minor role. How would you describe Jesus normally? Thinking outside of the context of today's reading, most of us would characterize Jesus as meek, mild, gentle, humble, a pacifist. He could heal and perform other miracles. We might give him the title of Son of God. However, would you be prepared to describe Jesus as a political dissident? Well, there is a verse that makes this understanding of Jesus possible. It comes from Luke chapter 19, verse 30. Jesus says, "Go into the village ahead of you, and as you enter it, you will find there a colt that has never been ridden. Untie it and bring it here." From this verse, it isn't a big stretch to assume that Jesus had already planned out this approach to Jerusalem, and probably already arranged with the owner of the colt for his plan to use it. He had to be sure that it hadn't been ridden since Jesus was last in Bethany. Now, with all of this planning, we're led to our first question of the day. Is the idea of Jesus being a political dissident one that you can accept? Or does it bring you discomfort? I encourage you to take a moment and pause the video and write down your answers, or at least give some extended time to thinking about that question. Taking some time to reflect on why you accept the idea of Jesus being a political dissident, or why that idea brings you discomfort, would also be helpful. Now, we need to be careful here to make sure that we see this text correctly. The text clearly states that some of the Pharisees interacted with Jesus. Yet at times in the church, we've often taught it more as if some Pharisees represented all Pharisees. And that's just not a fair understanding. Some of the Pharisees in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, order your disciples to stop. It's this verse 39 that often gets used to show that the Pharisees, the whole group of them, were in opposition to Jesus and in opposition to claims that he was the Messiah. We read it more closely, though. We don't see the actual reason why some Pharisees are asking Jesus to get his followers to stop. Why would they need to stop praising God? Why would they need to stop calling Jesus a king who comes in God's name? It is entirely possible that the Pharisees just wanted to avoid the political confrontation that they knew would develop. For they had warned Jesus to save his life before. This from Luke 13:31. At that very hour, some Pharisees came to Jesus and said to him, "Get away from here, for Herod wants to kill you." I'd say that this passage is solely about protecting the life of Jesus. And there's no reason to look at today's reading and think that the motivation would be anything but similar to that. That they want to protect Jesus' life. Which leads us into the second question that we have for today. How does the church overcome the traditional teaching that the story of Holy Week was the story of Jesus versus the Jews? Again, I encourage you to pause the video at this point and write down, or at least take some extended time to think of your answer to this question. Taking time to reflect on why it is important to not lump all Jews into the group that had Jesus crucified would be a helpful reflection. Thank you for joining me today in Bible study. I really would appreciate reading or hearing your thoughts on today's Bible study and the questions that I posed. If you're willing to share your thoughts with me, please email me at pastorcolin@holycrossburlington.ca. There will be another Bible study on Friday, and I hope you'll join me again. Until then, peace and blessings to those you love.